Have you ever noticed that it feels like people are getting dumber lately? Conversations are more emotional, nuance is completely disappearing, everybody is certain about their opinions, and the scary part is this, it's not just other people. This is something that's happening to all of us because we're living inside an environment that is pulling us into reactive, speed, and shallow-based conclusions. And in this episode, I want to show you what's really happening to human thinking right now, why most people are getting trapped in it, and how the most successful people stay clear, calm, and decisive when everyone else is reactive. So if you've ever felt like you're surrounded by noise or that thinking clearly is getting harder, this will change how you see everything. Let's get into it. All right, guys, so we're living in a time where it feels like people are literally getting less intelligent. But what's actually disappearing is depth of thought. So most people aren't less capable. They're thinking inside of environments that are de-incentivizing reflection and that are rewarding reaction. We also have this cultural illusion where we look at a handful of names like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and we assume that they're just geniuses. But what we're actually seeing is not magic intelligence, it's a trained way of thinking. So these people have learned how to think in a particular way. They pause, they evaluate, and decide from clarity instead of reacting emotionally. They don't let the moment hijack their perception. And that alone changes the quality of every decision they make. Meanwhile, if you look out in the world, the average person is being trained in the opposite direction. Short form content, outrageous 24/7 news cycles, virtue signaling, and algorithmic reinforcement are all training us into quick opinions instead of careful reasoning. So the real comparison isn't smart people versus dumb people. It's regulated thinkers versus reactive thinkers. And this is why it can feel like there's an epidemic of stupidity, but it's not stupidity. It's a systemic drift toward feeling like you have to respond immediately, and that's infused with these emotional charges that are hijacking our critical thinking process. In today's environment, the person who reacts fastest often gets rewarded. And so speed and confidence get mistaken for truth and intelligence. We see that whether we look at politics, whether we look at celebrities, whether we look at pundits, right? Everybody's responding so quickly, nobody's responding deeply. In the top 1%, they aren't winning because they were born different. They're winning because they've learned how to protect their thinking from a system that is designed to degrade it. One of the biggest misunderstandings about critical thinking is that people assume it's about intelligence and education or information. But here's the truth. Critical thinking isn't something you do. It is a byproduct of operating from a powerful state. That's why you can see the same person think clearly and strategically in one moment, and then depending on what's going on, become reactive or emotional and irrational in another. So their intelligence didn't change, but their state of being did. There are two primary states of being that human beings operate from. Primal states, which are states like stress, anxiety, overwhelm. They're driven by fear and urgency and scarcity. That's when your sympathetic expression of your nervous system is active, the fight or flight. And then there are powerful states, states like calm, joy, excitement, peace. These are driven by safety and clarity, agency and possibility. What's important to understand is you're always in one state of being or the other, and you're never in two states of being at the same time. But the primal state is when the nervous system is in survival mode. And so in that state, the brain is not focused on what's true or nuance or creating long-term outcomes. It's simply focused in the moment on protection. And so from this state, thinking collapses into a survival-based and emotional reactivity. But in a powerful state, the nervous system is regulated. It's the parasympathetic expression of the nervous system, the rest and relaxation. This is when the brain has access to higher order thinking, where you can properly evaluate, where you have clear perspective, where you're tapped into intuition. This is the state where you're connected to a higher intelligence that has a global perspective. So the ideas you have are strategic, they're efficient, they're highly intelligent because they come from a higher intelligence. And so they yield greater results. This is where critical thinking naturally occurs. This is the hidden advantage of the most successful people in the world. So they're not thinking critically because they're intelligent. They're thinking critically because they're calm. And when you look at elite decision makers, what you're really observing is emotional resiliency. It's a flexibility that their nervous system has. They don't allow pressure or fear or urgency to hijack their thinking. And that alone separates average decisions from extraordinary ones. And over time, that builds momentum. So as you think critically, you make better decisions. As you make better decisions, you produce better outcomes. And as over time you create more success, more wealth, and more certainty, you feel even calmer. That's one reason why the rich keep getting richer. I mean, think about it. You think Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg wake up every day worried about how they're going to make ends meet, or wondering what their purpose is in life, or hating their jobs, or worried that they're not going to have enough? No. They've created a level of security as a result of learning how to manage their state. And it makes it even easier for them to manage their state, right? In other words, the rich just keep getting richer. The successful just keep creating even more success. But this reframes the entire conversation around intelligence, because unintelligent thinking is not a lack of capacity. It's the result of being stuck in a chronic sympathetic or primal state. And the good news is that if you want to improve how you think, you don't need to learn more or get brain surgery. You just have to start learning how to get out of survival mode. What ultimately determines whether you operate from a primal or powerful state is not what happens to you. It's the meaning that you're giving to the experiences of your life. So let me explain this. Two people can experience the same exact situation, say a financial setback or criticism or uncertainty, and they end up in completely different states simply because of the way they interpret the situation, right? When an experience is interpreted as a threat, like I'm not safe, or I'm falling behind, or I'm losing control, the nervous system shifts immediately into survival. And from that survival state, emotion is going to override logic every single time, right? We make reactive decisions to try to create relief or to feel better. And our thinking becomes narrow and defensive. And this is where unintelligent thinking is born. Not because someone lacks intelligence, but because the body is prioritizing protection over perception. And on the other hand, when the same experience is interpreted in a neutral or positive way, like, oh, wow, that's new information, or, oh, this is unexpected but solvable, or, okay, I have options here. How do I want to handle this? The nervous system remains regulated. And from a regulated state, you have access to higher level thinking, to solutions, to options, to a way through any problem or challenge. See, the only thing that determines whether or not you react from a powerful or primal state is the meaning that you're giving the experience. Hey, it's David. Quick interruption to your regularly scheduled podcast episode. I want to let you know about an opportunity to go even deeper into this work together. If you have not yet, please check out the show notes. In there, we've got links to both our Mind Hack and our Whole Human Framework programs. Our Mind Hack course is an incredible framework. It's the foundation of everything that I teach on this show to help you understand how to become deeply aware of the subconscious programs that are holding you back, and to teach you the technologies and frameworks to allow you to dramatically transform those belief systems and rewire your brain. Again, the Mind Hack program is our 7-day self-paced program. We also have our 12-week course, The Whole Human Framework. And we've got both of them right now bundled in a special offer for those of you who want to go big, want to go fast, and who understand that you don't want to put off another day of your full potential or holding on to unnecessary stress, anxiety, or suffering, but you want to be liberated from these habits of thinking and have a powerful living experience. Check out the link in the show notes. Jump on over to the website. Take a look at the programs and the extraordinary success stories of entrepreneurs just like you who have gone through these courses, and I will see you on the other side. And now, back to your regularly scheduled podcast episode. So say you lose your job. One way to react is, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? I'm not going to have enough, right? If that's how you react, that person is not going to be able to think critically or create opportunities or respond productively. But another person might say, hey, it is what it is. Life's always happening for me. I didn't really love the job anyway. There are lots of opportunities out there. I'm sure I'm going to find one. That person puts themselves in a position to create something better. What's the difference? The meaning they're giving the experience. Same situation, different thoughts. And in the first example, the meaning creates unintelligent thinking and a reactive state that perpetuates the problem. And in the latter example, the belief creates a powerful state and allows navigation through the complexities of life. So this is why highly successful people don't appear shaken by the same problems that overwhelm others. They're not ignoring reality, but they're assigning a different meaning to it. Meaning, or what you believe, is the real switch behind thinking quality. So you change the meaning and your state changes. If you can change your state, then your thinking reorganizes automatically. And critical thinking doesn't start with having more intelligent thoughts. It starts with learning how to consciously choose what an experience means to you. This is why the great thinkers like Buddha said, the mind is everything, what you think you become. People don't think unintelligently by nature. They lose their capacity for critical thinking because their daily inputs keep pulling them back into primal states. And this is really important to understand. What you consistently consume becomes the baseline state that your nervous system operates from. And you're not just consuming information, you're literally training your brain and your body on how to interpret reality. And there are a few common behaviors that almost guarantee unintelligent, reactive thinking if done consistently. The 24/7 news cycle, which is optimized to trigger fear and urgency. Screen addiction, which fragments attention, and fear-based content around politics, the economy, wars, collapse, right? Social media comparison, which reinforces scarcity and inadequacy, and excessive caffeine, which keeps the nervous system overstimulated. The danger is not any one of these behaviors, it's consistency over time. Because you can wake up on a Monday and try to think critically, but you can't override a lifestyle that is constantly activating survival mode. So critical thinking requires a stable runway of regulation. And this is why intelligent people still make unintelligent decisions, right? Their thinking is overridden by their behavioral stack. Before you change how you think, you have to notice what you're feeding your mind, your body, and your soul. And once you understand that state determines thinking and meaning determines state, the real question becomes, how do you change meaning in real time? And this is where decision stops being philosophical and it becomes practical power. Now, most people think a decision is about deciding to do something, like I'm going to lose weight or I'm going to make more money. But in reality, a decision is deciding what something means, like is money easy to make or is money hard to make? And the reason people stay stuck is not because they don't have options, it's because their decisions keep them in a primal state. Powerful people audit their decisions and align them with what they want to create. They decide that money is easy. They decide they have enough time. They decide that they're good enough. And from that state, they think critically and they create extraordinary lives. And one of the most powerful tools I teach is the decision matrix. And it actually came out of an experience I had where I'd been single for 10 years. And I realized that the meaning I had been giving my experience was that there's no good ones left out there. I'm never going to find someone. I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. And I realized that my decisions were determining what state of being I was in, which was ultimately determining what reality I was creating. And so I sat down and I interrogated these ideas. I questioned my beliefs. And what came out of that was a new decision that I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but very soon I was going to meet the woman of my dreams. And through a series of coincidences, 2 weeks later, I met the woman who is now my wife. And I've now taught the decision matrix to literally tens of thousands of people. And I want to teach it to you right now. Even if you've gone through this before, it's helpful to go through again. You take a piece of paper and you draw 3 columns. Column on the left, column in the middle, column on the right. And column number 1 is for the limiting belief. And what I want you to do is I want you to look at an area of your life that's creating stress for you right now. Let's just say, for example, it's money. Take a look at what you believe about this situation or this area of your life that's creating stress. Let's imagine that it's something like, I'm not going to have enough. So you write that down in column number 1. I'm not going to have enough. Column number 2 is for the new decision. And the new decision is always some form of the opposite of this limited or unintelligent belief. So in this case, it might be something like, I have enough, I've always had enough, and I will always have enough. And then column 3 is to answer this question. What evidence do I have for the fact that this new decision is true? And so you might look at that and you go, well, it is true that I have enough right now. I don't have as much as I would like, but I have a roof over my head, I've got a phone, I've got food, I'm not going hungry, I have enough. And well, I've always had enough, right? I mean, there are times where I wish I had more, but I've always had enough. And then you might logically conclude that, well, if I have enough and I've always had enough, then I will always have enough. So like, what evidence do I have for the fact that what I wrote down as my new decision is true? Well, because that's my reality. And you might realize that, wow, I've been telling myself this my whole life. It's been years that I've been worried that I'm not going to have enough. That's never become true. And what you're doing right now is you're seeing the unintelligent thinking is unintelligent. One of the things that we believe is that the fastest way to change your thinking is to see that the limiting belief is actually untrue. And you'll notice as you work through this process, if you go back and you revisit the limiting belief, if you think that thought that you're not going to have enough, it moves you what? Into a primal state. And as you look at your new decision and you start to establish that it's actually true for you, what do you notice? It moves you into a powerful state. Now, this process, the decision matrix, it slows down thinking, and it allows you to dissolve the reactive patterns and to restore intelligent perception. And this is not pretending reality is different. It's acknowledging that reality is always filtered through perception. And what happens is when the meaning that you're giving the experience of your life changes, your state changes. And when your state changes, your thinking becomes critical instead of reactive. And then over time, critical thinking becomes your natural way of operating. So this is how people exit a life that they don't love. This is how you're able to transcend this reactive system that is around us, not by finding reality, but by mastering your interpretation. See, most people don't struggle because they lack intelligence. They struggle because they're thinking from the wrong state. So in this episode, we explored why critical thinking isn't about being smarter, it's about being regulated. And when you learn to pause, assign meaning deliberately, and decide from clarity instead of fear, your entire life has no choice but to organize differently, right? Your money decisions improve, your relationships clean up, pressure decreases, and you realize, wow, life isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. So I hope you love this episode as much as I love sharing it with you. If this resonates with you and you want to go deeper, you can check out the links in the show notes for our digital courses. We've got an amazing bundle right now, which is my Mind Hack course and my Whole Human Framework course. And we've also got my upcoming live event. It's coming up very soon. We've still got early bird tickets. If you really want to go deep with 1,000+ impact-driven, high-performing human beings, join us at the Powerful Living Experience Live. Otherwise, if you haven't yet, subscribe. If you're listening on the audio platforms, leave me a rating and review. I so appreciate you. I love being on this journey with you. As I've always said, personal growth and taking our awareness to the next level is not a do-it-yourself project. It's about doing it with others, and I'm so grateful to have you as a part of our community, and I will see you in the next episode.